I can't believe I'm saying this. You've all been waiting forever, but the wait is over. I have a book release date. Up until now, you've heard me talk about the Wheel of Connection and the Roots of Friendship framework in bits and pieces throughout the 175 episodes of Friendship IRL. But now, I finally have the book that ties it all together. An in-depth guide for where you are now, to what you want your connections to look like, to a real action plan for getting there. Basically, the missing vocabulary for every relationship in your life and a real plan for what to do with it. Are We Friends Yet? Yep, I know it's a good title. Are We Friends Yet releases June 16th, and I want you to be first in line when it drops. I set up a wait list. Check in the show notes for the link, put your name on. When you sign up, you actually get immediate access to the Less Lonely Club community. You also get the 10-day Connection Reset private podcast, and I got a few other goodies I'm going to drop for you too. This is the book I've been wanting to get in your hand for years. And all of you who have been here, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You deserve to be the first ones to read it. Get on the wait list today.
Hey! Alrighty, gang. Here's to nights that turn into mornings and friends that turn into family. Cheers!
Hello. Welcome to the Friendship IRL podcast. I'm your host, Alex Alexander, and each week we explore what's working and what's not in our friendships, community, and connections. Have you ever wished you could sit down and have a conversation about what is really going on in your friendships? Well, you found your people. Join us as we dive into real-life stories and explore new ways to approach these connections. Together, we're reimagining the rules of friendship. Today, we're talking about showing up for someone you care about when they are going through a divorce. And maybe you're like, Alex, I don't need this episode right now. None of my close friends are going through a divorce. And I would tell you, it doesn't have to be one of your closest friends. I think we all can be better at showing up for the people in our broader community when it comes to divorce. Divorce is one of those life moments where everyone has an opinion, a reaction, a face that they make when they are told. And almost none of it is actually helpful. So what is helpful? Knowing how to show up, knowing what to say. And honestly, I think sometimes the most important thing you can learn is what not to say. And understanding that the person that you love or care about or the person in your broader community is going to need different things from you at different points in this process. Divorce is a long game. And if you're here to show up for somebody, even in the small ways, even if it's your coworker in passing, knowing the stages of grief when it comes to divorce, that just makes you a better community member, a better coworker, a better close friend, a better neighbor. So that's what we're digging into today. My guest today is Oona Metz. She is a licensed independent clinical social worker and certified group psychotherapist with 30 years of experience supporting women through some of life's hardest transitions. She also just wrote the book on divorce. Literally. It's called Unhitched, the Essential Divorce Guide for Women, and it came out in January 2026. If you have a friend going through divorce, buy them a copy. If you are going through a divorce, buy yourself a copy. Seriously, this book is essential. In this conversation, Oona and I talk about the 5 phases of divorce grief and what your friend might need from you in each one. We talk about the shame and the stigma that still surrounds divorce and how the words you choose in that very first conversation matter more than you think. We talk about building a divorce support team and why trying to be everything for your friend is actually setting you both up for failure. And finally, we talk about what it really means to be the kind of friend who shows up for the hard stuff. This is the kind of episode that I totally understand if you're like, oh, I'll just remember that exists and come back to it someday if I need it. But honestly, we are all interacting with people in our broader community who are going through divorces. So all of us, we need to dive in. Hi, Oona. Thank you so much for being here today to talk all things divorce.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've really been looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I have been really looking forward to our conversation. I get very, very excited, as odd as this is to say, sometimes about like the more difficult conversations, because I feel like this is some of the stuff that we're just not even talking about, how important this is, how hard it is to show up for our friends when they're navigating divorce.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my passions in life is to reduce the shame and stigma about divorce. And I feel like the best way to do that is to talk about it. And so we're doing that today. And hopefully we'll see that little shame-o-meter take a little tick down.
Well, you teed that up for me perfectly, because as I was reading your book, one of the things that stood out to me when I was writing my little notes and being like, what are we going to talk about, was I thought it would be interesting to ask you, as the divorced person, you've gotten divorced twice now. I would imagine that it becomes very, very apparent very quickly whether someone kind of leans into that divorce stigma or whether they can shift into this new viewpoint that you present in Unhitched. And I think that says a lot about like the safety of how somebody can support you. If you are somebody getting divorced, we're mainly going to talk about how to be a friend.
Yep.
But I would imagine like those the conversations when you start to tell someone, they hold a lot of weight for the entire journey we're about to talk about today.
Yes. I have a great story related to that, which is that when I first got divorced the first time, I lived in a house and we had a front yard and a backyard, and I had two brown thumbs. I did not know how to do gardening at all. I was like, I'm going to kill these plants if I am out there by myself. So I went on the listserv, my local town listserv, and I asked if anybody, out there, could I hire them to just help me with the garden? I don't even need them to do it for me. Just like show me what's a weed and what I should not be cutting down. So I hired this woman. She came over, and as soon as she arrived, I just explained to her, I said, look, I just got divorced. My ex just moved out, and she was the one who took care of the garden, and I really don't know what I'm doing. And she looked at me and she said, oh, congratulations. And I was so taken aback, but it was a really important moment in my journey, because usually most people would say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Strangers would say, oh, I'm very sorry, and look at me with kind of goopy eyes. And friends, depending on where they were on the spectrum, might say, I'm so sorry, or, oh my God, what happened? People want to know what happened, right? So what happened? How are you? How's your daughter? And I think those kinds of saying it in that way, how are you? How's your daughter? Kind of implies that what you've gone through is a terrible thing. And, for me, I really hold both that divorce is always kind of a heartbreak and stressful. Like nobody wants to go through it. Like, of course, it's stressful and heartbreaking and terrible to go through. But it can also be an amazing opportunity for growth and healing. And for some people, it can be a relief. And oftentimes it's really nuanced, like it's both. So recently I wrote an article that was called Congratulations or Condolences. What should you say to somebody who's getting divorced? And I think the answer is, don't make an assumption. I think the answer is, listen, ask the person how they're feeling and tune in to what their experience might be, because if it's in the beginning stages, they're likely to be stressed and it's likely to be heartbreaking, whether they initiated it or not. But if they're in the final stages, they may feel a tremendous amount of relief or freedom, or like, oh my God, I can't wait to start my next chapter, or, or someplace in between. And everybody's different, but it's not just one size fits all, I guess is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah. When I think about the friends that I've had who've gotten divorced in the past few years, I think it depends obviously on how close you are with somebody, right? Because if I'm really close and I've been kind of a part of their venting or their playing out different scenarios and talking it through, then when they finally make a decision, it's very easy for me to either congratulate them or console them, basically. But the people that I don't know as closely, I think my go-to has kind of been like, wow, that's a lot. How are you doing?
Yes, excellent. You did the exact right thing.
Okay.
Because it is a lot for everybody. Mm-hmm. And it's great to ask how people are doing. Yeah.
And then let them lead and then
give you a cue. Yep. And
go
then
with
you can
that.
follow from there. Yeah, that's excellent.
Well, sometimes I think it helps to have just like a go-to phrase for people, because in that moment, when a friend maybe tells you, maybe you didn't know that they were even considering this, and you feel kind of blindsided, not in a bad way, like it's not about you, but I'm blindsided in that our brains process so many things at one time. And so while you are expected to react, you might be in your head being like, wow, are there any signs of this that I noticed? Have they been up? It's like you're playing 50 different things through your head in the exact moment that you are supposed to respond in a certain way.
That's right. Yeah.
So I find that sometimes I like to even have a go-to script.
Yes. And just as it's nice to have a script for the friend, it's also nice. One of the chapters of my book is about how do you tell people? And you don't have to tell, if you're the person getting divorced, I do not recommend that you tell everybody the same story. And the story needs to be a true story for sure. But you can have an elevator pitch that's as short as, yes, we've been trying to make things better for a long time and it hasn't worked. So we're going to move on, which is a true story for most people. Or you can have more details about what happened, or, with your very close friends, you can tell them the whole story if you want. But I think good to have a script prepared, because people will ask, and people oftentimes in a very well-meaning way.
Well, and as I'm thinking through that, what I'm about to say, I had not anticipated, but when you were talking about kind of your close allies, friendly comrades, and neutral Nellies, that's what you call them, and having a script for each one, I was thinking to myself like, oh, okay, so there's some times where I've been the close ally. And now in future circumstances, I'm like, honestly, I should probably ask my friend what their script is for the neutral Nellies.
Right. That's right.
So that even though I know all the details, I can repeat their script, whatever they have determined is what they are comfortable with, when somebody asks me, because that often happens, right? Is like, well, what happened there? And I'm always trying to stay as neutral and whatever as possible, but I could just take their exact script and repeat it.
That's right. Right. Yes. I can give you another example too of the ways in which sometimes we can make assumptions in a very well-meaning way.
Yeah.
And it backfires.
I would love that.
So I'll tell on myself again. So many years ago, I had a friend and she got divorced in it was a pretty gruesome divorce. Her husband acted very badly. And she got a divorce, and I was pretty close in, so I kind of knew the whole story. And our kids were the same age. And so sometimes I would see him around town or at school at drop-off or pick-up or at soccer games or whatever. I would run into him. And in the beginning, I was very mad at him about the way he had acted. And she was primarily my friend. I wasn't really friends with the couple. So when I saw him, I was quite proud of myself that I would ignore him and I would not speak to him in public. And I was like, wow, I'm really supporting my friend. Isn't this great for me? So one day I told her this. I said, I've been seeing your ex around town, and I just want you to know I won't speak to him. And she said, you know what, Oona, we have kids together, and my kid is going to pick up on that. And yeah, he was a jerk to me in the marriage, but I don't want him to be a villain in the community. Like, he's going to live in this community. He's the father of my children. We are trying to co-parent together. Like, you don't have to be friends with him, but please don't ignore him. And it was such a good lesson for me. I was like, oh my God, here I was assuming that I was being this really good friend. Turns out not so much. So from then on, when I saw him, I would say, hi, how are you? How's the kid? Whatever, but not really engage any more than that. But I would I wouldn't ignore him.
I have not a very similar story, but like kind of a similar story. So some really close friends got divorced. Like, their children call me TT, right? Like, very close family friends. And when they told us about the divorce, my husband and I sat down and we kind of like game planned how we were going to approach this. And like, we wanted to be on the same page. And our immediate answer was like, well, we want this to be as easy for the kids as possible. We want them to know that we are neutral. I don't ever want them to feel like they are with one parent or the other. And Dad brought us into the friendship. Like, he knew us before they got married, but they've been married a long time. We're friends with her too. And we don't ever want the kids to feel like if they're with mom, it would be weird to invite us, or we only can come to dad's side things or whatever. And so we made a really big point in the beginning of, even when we were with the kiddos, like I would take selfies and be like, let's send them to mom. Like, let's tell mom what we're doing today. Let's really make it known that even though we normally see them when we're with dad, in their minds, hopefully it doesn't feel that different with mom. And if they're with mom, they could always contact us, and vice versa. But we had to sit down and like really make a conscious plan and actively, as the adults, make sure that we were proactively showing the kids that it didn't matter. Yeah.
Yep. Did she appreciate that? The mom? Did she appreciate getting those? Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I think so. And we'd make a point to like call when they were with her sometimes, and invited her to do things, and just really wanted, and it has to do partially with her. Like, her and I got together and we talked about everything after they decided on the divorce. But it really, really also had to do with the kids. Like, everybody was kind of in agreement, right? On like, let's do whatever we can to make the kids feel
that's great.
As safe and secure as possible.
Oh, that's great. Good for you.
We tried.
Yeah.
We're all stumbling through this, but that's my story on that.
Yes.
Like, that's a role we can play. Something when I was in your book that I noticed that overlaps so much with my work and how I talk about friendship is this idea of kind of building your divorce team and having different roles for people. And I loved your very, very, very specific roles, because I do think that when somebody's life has such a massive upheaval, like a divorce, if you're a close friend, I think you can feel like you have to be there in all the ways.
Right.
And then you put all this pressure on yourself, and that's inevitable to fail.
Right. And we're all busy, right?
Yes.
Everybody's busy. Everybody's got their own things that they're contending with. It's very hard when you're going through something as hard as a divorce to feel like you only have one person to rely on. So yeah, I really encourage people to think about who their friends and family are and who's good at what. Because, there may be a friend that's really good at, you call them in the middle of the night crying, and they're a great listener, but they're a disaster when it comes to helping you fix your printer, and you might have another friend who's like, you call up and you're like, this printer is driving me crazy. Can you please come over? And they're like, I'll be there in 5 minutes. They come over, boop, fixed, and that can be so useful and so comforting. Or your friend where you just call and you say, you know what? I just need to I don't even want to talk that much. I just want to spend time with somebody today. Like, can we when are you going grocery shopping? Can we go together? Maybe we can grab a cup of coffee afterwards, but like, can I go on errands with you today? So I think identifying all kinds of different friends with different strengths is so important. And definitely finding a friend who's gone through divorce, because it is kind of a unique life transition, and it can be really helpful to have other friends or people who've gone through it too.
If somebody is out there wanting to find somebody who's been through divorce, do you have any like go-to suggestions of where you tell them to maybe go look for somebody? Like, should they ask a friend of a friend? Should they join a group or a forum? I mean, it could be any of these, but do you have any top suggestions?
I mean, I run divorce support groups, so I would always say if you have a divorce support group in your back pocket, definitely join one. Mine are in Boston and they're in person, so they're not accessible to everybody. But there are definitely a lot of online, like Facebook has a lot of divorce groups. I would just say you have to be very careful with the legal part of your divorce if you're going to post anything online. Anything you post online, you have to look at it through the lens of how would a lawyer look at this or how would a judge look at this? So just be very careful. You could do it anonymously, of course. And then I would also say scratch the surface, because there are so many people out there who are divorced. And once you're going through one, you're going to find those people and they're going to find you. And so like I have people who, a lot of the referrals I get these days are from word of mouth. And there's like a little whisper network that happens especially with divorced women, where, if you tell some of your friends, I'm going through this divorce. If you know anybody going through it, let me know. They'll come up with people for you. I recently took a trip, and on the way to the airport, the Uber driver was a woman. And I always ask, if I have an Uber driver who's a woman, I always ask, do you have kids? So we got into this whole conversation. Yes, she has kids. Yes, she's divorced. We talked all about her divorce. And then I get to the airport, and by the end, she was like, oh, I can't wait to buy your book. And then get to the airport, I got onto the plane, and I had this big cup of coffee. I hadn't drunk at all. So I handed it to the stewardess as I was getting on the plane. And I was like, do you have a garbage back there? Could you throw this away? And she said, oh yeah, sure. No problem. And I said, just be careful, because there's still coffee left over. I didn't want it to spill or anything.
Yeah.
And she said, don't worry. The trash bag back here is a lot more reliable than my ex-husband. And so I was like, oh, you're divorced? I'm sitting in 7C. Come see me. I have something for you. So a little while later, she comes down the aisle to 7C where I was sitting. And I said, oh, so you're divorced? And she said, yeah. And I said, I just wrote this book. Here's a bookmark for you. And she was like, oh, yeah. She started talking to me. So my point is, you really just need to scratch the surface and you will find people. I think it often can feel so isolating when you're going through it. And it's so important to have a team of people that are going to support you through it. And so I think if you just begin to ask, not necessarily that you're going to become friends with your Uber driver or the stewardess on the plane, but maybe you will. Who knows?
They may not become your new best friend forever, closest confidant, whatnot. But I have this whole framework where I have the wheel of connection. And one of the categories is what I call a defined friend. And like, you might just have a divorce buddy where you talk about some really intense things that are happening in your life. And that person might know a lot of things about you, but might not really be a part of other areas of your life necessarily. But they could be what is holding you emotionally.
Absolutely.
Through this moment of your life. And it could be your Uber driver. It could be this isn't divorce, but I have a friend who lost her husband last year, and she has found another person who lost her husband in the same way. They passed in the exact same way. And the way she found that was just people knew, and like an acquaintance literally sent her a message being like, hey, I know somebody whose husband passed 3 months before yours. Same situation. Would you like me to connect you on Instagram?
Love it. Love it.
They connected, they started messaging, they exchanged phone numbers. They've never met in person, but this is like somebody who really gets what she is going through. And I know that it's all grief, right?
Yes.
Like divorce is grief, loss is grief. So yeah, you never know. Somebody could connect you on Instagram.
That's right.
Could be your
That's
Uber
right.
driver.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely.
Everything that Oona and I just talked about, the Whisper Network, the Uber driver, the friend who found someone on Instagram who had gone through the same thing, that is the wheel of connection in action. That is what happens when you stop thinking about friendships as one big category and see all the different people that are already in your orbit. Now, the Wheel of Connection is one of my core frameworks, and if you want the full breakdown, you can head to episode 100 to go listen. But if you are in the middle of a divorce right now, or you are trying to figure out how to show up for a friend who is, I also want to tell you that you should go to the show notes and check out my book, Are We Friends Yet? It drops on June 16th, so depending on when you're listening to this, you're either going to find a waitlist link or a link to go purchase the book. The entire Wheel of Connection framework is in that book in its most detailed state. I've never taught it as intensely as I do in that book. But more than that, this book was built for exactly this moment. The moment where you look around and you want a support system that actually fits where you are, but you have no idea how to build it or even what you already have that you want to take forward with you. Are We Friends Yet walks you through the whole thing, from taking stock of what's already there and what's not, which is okay. We're going to talk about how to rebuild that, to understanding how to make a real game plan of small, doable actions that really start to shift your connections and your support system. I have watched this framework change thousands of people's lives. I have endless messages and DMs and emails from people who are living completely different, supported lives with people because they put the energy in to build the support system they need. And so that's why I wrote this book for the person who is rebuilding. Somebody who maybe is at rock bottom, who is looking around desperately wanting connection that matches this phase of life. That is who this is for. So if you are somebody going through a divorce, so you have a friend going through a divorce, well, that probably is you. So be sure to head to the show notes and grab a copy. Now, if you're like, Alex, I'm not ready to buy your book, that's okay. There are hundreds of hours of this podcast. The book is just the shortcut. It's basically like if you want to spend a couple hours with the book instead of listening to 100 hours of the podcast, you will walk away with a whole new sense of how to build the support system you need. In the book, you talk about, I'm a sucker for a framework, for a model, for a system, for something to make sense of the emotional stuff that makes no sense.
Yes.
And you have the 5 phases of divorce grief.
That's right.
Now, I know you wrote this book for people going through divorce, supporting people through divorce, but honestly, these are the moments where I'm like, every single person should read your book, Oona.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody, because you could just be a random acquaintance and meet someone. And I think it's so helpful to have this framework of where somebody might be when you meet them, because that's going to tell you so much about maybe the state of their world at the moment.
Right. Yes.
The first one is heartbreak. Can we talk a little bit about what somebody going through the heartbreak stage might look like?
Yeah. And I think important to keep in mind, if you're the friend, that people go through the heartbreak stage whether they initiate the divorce or not.
Yes.
So oftentimes people think, oh my God, her husband left her in the middle of the night and now it's terrible and, poor her. But if you're the one who's initiating, and that's true, right? That's a heartbreak. If you're the one who's initiating divorce, you don't do that lightly. People only do that after they have experienced heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak in their marriage. And even coming to that decision, especially if they have kids, but even if they don't, coming to that decision, like nobody stands on the altar and says, oh, I hope one day I get divorced, right? So it's heartbreaking. And I think in that stage, it's common that people are just trying to manage getting through each day. Like I say in the heartbreak stage, the most important thing you can do is make sure you're eating and sleeping. So you might see, if you have a friend who's in that very initial stages, you might do something like bring her soup or tell her, you know what, check in on her about her sleep. And if she's not sleeping at all, help her figure out how she can get some sleep, whether that's contacting her doctor or, whatever it is. Because if you can't eat and you can't sleep, then, you're not going to be able to function very well in those beginning stages.
Yeah. And in the stages where a lot of things are happening, right? You're probably navigating legal things, potentially living situation, finances, like big,
yes,
big,
so much uncertainty,
thought-consuming things where you really have to think about complex problem solving and your future and what you want. So yeah, anything you can do to support kind of their foundation.
Yes, bring soup.
This episode is brought to you by Slowly, a digital pen pal app. You know how I'm always encouraging you to push outside your normal friendship filters, to not always make friends who are in the same stage of life, same background, same zip code. If you're ready to step outside your norm, then Slowly is the tool you need. Over 10 million people are using Slowly to exchange letters with people all over the world. So you have endless options for new connections. Here's the thing. If you're somebody who gets anxious about new connections, this is incredible practice. Writing gives you time to think about what you want to say, but Slowly takes this a step further. Letters don't arrive instantaneously. The further your pen pal lives, the longer delivery takes. We might have found the only modern platform where there's zero guilt for not responding right away. So, if you're ready to add someone new to your wheel of connection, someone you genuinely never would have met otherwise, download Slowly today using the link in the show notes. You'll get 30% off Slowly Plus for an ad-free experience, better search filters, and more. Now, I'm off to go find my new pen pal. Will it be you? And again, bring soup, offer to sit with them, offer to read documents if they're willing and like give a synopsis or point to the most important parts. There's so many things you can do in this phase. And, when you were talking about, when I was reading your book as well, about like the initiator versus the person who is being told, I want a divorce, I was thinking back to friends who have gotten divorced where they were kind of experiencing this heartbreak, which is, I think, what you were trying to say earlier, like while married.
Yes.
So they're doing their daily routine, but they're already kind of grieving the end of their marriage, but maybe they haven't quite figured out how to ask for the divorce yet. And depending on how close you are to them, you might know that they're in this situation or you might not.
That's right.
I've witnessed that for sure.
Yes. I think also one thing never to ask your friend is if they tell you and they're definitive, they say, we've decided to divorce or I'm moving out or whatever, to say like, are you sure? But have you tried everything? Because people have tried everything, Unless they say, do you have any ideas for me about other things I could try? Then you can respond with your ideas. But saying, have you tried everything? Again, it increases shame and stigma on people if you ask them that.
Well, and I think this is a moment where, as the friend, you really need to think about how safe you want to be. You might have your own thoughts, but the thing is, like, this is not the moment to have your own thoughts. Keep them to yourself, send them in another direction. Like,
yes. Inside voice.
Yeah,
inside your
like
head
you
voice.
may think those things, but in this moment, you just need to shut that down and support your friend's decision.
Right. And understand that there may be many, many, many things that have gone on. Even if you're a close friend, many things that have gone on that you don't know about. I have a lot of women in my practice who have very close friends, and they really were hesitant to talk about how difficult their marriage was because they didn't want to admit it to themselves until they were ready to leave. And they were worried that saying it out loud to another person would increase, even if their friend didn't encourage them to leave, just the fact of saying it out loud would make them feel like, I can't believe I'm saying all of this. I really need to leave. And they weren't quite ready yet.
Yeah. I've talked about this before on the podcast. I have come to terms with the fact that I am the friend that finds out last.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, it's kind of a compliment, or at least I'm taking it that way. But it's because somebody knows that when they tell me, it becomes very real.
Yes.
Because my immediate thing is like, great, you made that decision. How can I support you in moving that forward, right?
Yep.
What can I do for you? I will do a lot of things for somebody to, do you need me to come pack up your house? Do you need me to help you go through things? Do you need me to change? Things I've done. Do you need me to help you change all your shared like Netflix and Amazon passwords and figure out how to split those? Do you need me to calculate up what those bills are? Like really weird, mundane things.
Yes. But that are so overwhelming if you have to do all of them.
So overwhelming.
If you can outsource some of them to your friend, that's fantastic. Good for you.
Yeah, I've gone in there and like changed the address where we're, sending certain bills or magazine subscriptions.
Right.
It really could be that tiny of a task, but that adds up and that helps somebody. But I will do that. So most people, a lot of other friends, it's very common, like other friends will know before I know. And that's because I'm like, okay, what can I do now? I'm ready.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
The next phase is the roller coaster phase, which you say is the longest phase and one where like two seemingly opposite feelings can be happening simultaneously. Can we talk a little bit about showing up as a friend in this phase?
Absolutely. The roller coaster phase for the divorcing person is really when they're feeling all of the feels. So they may be really rapidly going from anger to sadness to anxiety to feelings of rejection to relief to freedom to back to anger, back to sadness. And I think one of the things that's really important as a friend in this, if you have a friend who's in roller coaster, is that you accept that there's going to be nuance, right? Sometimes, like I'll have women say, like, I'm so angry at my ex. I cannot believe what they did. I'm so angry. And you know what? I also miss them.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be the friend that's able to hold both of those things, it's a really rare friend who can hold that. And, because just like when in the example I gave before, like I had so many feelings about my friend's ex-husband and he had acted so badly and I was so mad at him, on her behalf. And yet she was co-parenting with him and she couldn't stay that angry all the time. And so I needed to like check my own feelings and talk to somebody else about it rather than her. So I think holding open the possibility that your friend is going to have some nuanced feelings is the best thing you can do for them. And understanding that like it is going to be a roller coaster. So if you see your friend on a Friday and they're doing really well, and then you see them on a Monday and they look like, hell, not to say like, but wait, I thought you were doing well. Just to accept that like, this is how it goes. And it may be something happened. It may be something didn't happen. but the roller coaster is real and people go through it,
Yeah, when I think back to some experiences of helping friends where they were in this moment, I would say I kind of almost think of it as like in one ear out the other a little bit. Like they tell you what they're feeling, right? They're so angry, they're so mad, and 10 minutes later they're sad or they're happy that they don't have to think of anybody else when they decide where to put their dishes or whatever it is. You could be like, "Wait, weren't you just mad?"
Right.
And you can't do that. So it's almost like whatever the emotion is, okay, but 5 minutes later, I just want to like almost pretend the other emotion didn't exist a little bit. Like you still hold that, but you just follow along with whatever their lead is for whatever they say.
And know that this doesn't mean your friend is going crazy. Like
No.
this is normal,
Yeah.
appropriate, and it's not going to last forever.
Yeah. And don't, none of this like, well, you said you were this. Like, okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You got to, like
Right.
you're saying, you got to hold the nuance. You got to hold the wave here. And then the other thing I was thinking about is I have a vision of a very specific friend. We went to a gathering together. She was really anxious about going to this gathering because she knew she was going to see extended family from her ex. And she hadn't had to do that yet. So she didn't want to go alone, but she felt like she needed to go for the person they were celebrating. And so she asked if I could go. And I said, of course. And, we got in the car and she was all like, it put her brave face on. She really talked herself up. She was like, it's going to be fine. I enjoyed these people when we were married. It's okay. We're good. And then we got in the room and certain things that were said triggered her.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know what was so triggering about it. It wasn't even anything that bad, but whatever it was triggering to her and the relationship, and that's fine. And so even could be one day to the next day, but
Yes.
it could also just be
1 hour to the next.
1 hour to the next.
Yes. Or 1 minute to the next. Yeah.
Where you just don't know what is coming next.
Absolutely.
So then the next phase is the mending phase, where the emotions become a little less intense and it's a little more focused on kind of like reflection or taking responsibility, renegotiating boundaries and what life looks like. Can we talk about showing up as a friend in this phase?
Absolutely. I think the mending phase is really when the divorcing person, instead of spending all of their energy on their unhealthy marriage or on their divorce, they are able to return to themselves and really think about what it is that they need. And they may be more available to you as a friend and more able to engage in back and forth. They may have a lot of needs in the heartbreak and roller coaster phase, but in mending, they may be able to be there for you too. And I think important for people not to feel like they're being left out of your important, life updates. And so this may be a phase where it feels a little bit more mutual again. And maybe you're helping brainstorm what they can do to help themselves now. Or maybe they're just doing it. Or maybe you're going to a yoga class together because they're realizing, boy, I need to pay attention to my body and it's been a while, So I think, again, just being present and understanding that they need to take some care of themselves now again.
Well, and hopefully really celebrating all the new things, right? Like
Yes.
Some things are scary or it's different to do them on your own, or wow, you're going back to yoga. I love that you're doing that for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So then the fourth phase is letting go and really just kind of shedding that identity as a married person and maybe letting go a little bit of like the resentment. And this phase, when I was reading through this phase, but then also your different roles, this seems like a place where if you are that activity partner,
Yes.
this is really a great place to step in.
Yes, to show up. Absolutely. Yes. Because people are letting go of their identity, as you said, of being a married person or being part of an intact family, and really needing to figure out what their new identity is and how do they go about that kind of life right now. They're also letting go of the narrative, their spouse's, their ex's narrative about the marriage and divorce, and hopefully letting go of some resentment and anger too. So You might see them just feel lighter at this stage. But I think important to know, for the friend to know, that divorce lasts a very long, like the feelings of divorce last a very long time. So somebody in this phase might look like they're not thinking about the divorce at all. And that may be true, but it also may be true that it is still on their mind and that they still want to check in about it every once in a while. So just being aware that, I think, for friends, for outsiders, it often feels like, okay, well, you're getting divorced. Okay. And then, all right, well, that was a couple months ago. So now let's move on to other things. And they may still be, holding some feelings about it. So even though they're in the letting go phase.
Well, and when I was reading this part, I was also thinking, I would think that this is where maybe the roles and the ways that you connected before really start to shift. So let's say you were couple friends.
Yes.
And in those beginning phases, we're kind of in triage. We're in like, let's do the immediate things where emotions are all over. So it might be easier to just be like one-on-one with your friend. But then when they start letting go and going back out in the world and adding things back into their life, suddenly you're realizing as the friend, like, oh, some of the ways we connected before are no longer
That's right.
an option.
And I think, for the person who's getting divorced, one of the things in this phase is figuring out which are the things, the events, the places, the music, the food, everything from your marriage that you want to hold on to because they're important to you and kind of re-own them, and which are the ones that you want to let go of, right? So there may be like certain places, for instance, where you could help your friend to say, I know that your special place with your ex was, whatever it was, Newport, Rhode Island. How are you feeling about Newport these days? Are you feeling like you're going to let that go? Or are you feeling like you want to re-own it? And if you're feeling like you want to re-own it, let's go re-own Newport or whatever, wherever the place is, or
a
that
restaurant
or that band, because those, I think for each person, they have to really decide on each of those things. Divorce, you're letting go of your ex-spouse, but your relationship with a lot of other things changes too.
Yeah. I was just thinking, we could see this for some people. They might see it as sad as the friend because things are different now. But I always like to take this moment and be like, wow, I'm so excited to see the new version of our friendship. Like, wow, how cool that maybe I could go with her to re-own Rhode Island and we're going to make this memory and maybe that'll like open this new door for us to connect in a new way. And if nothing else, I'm just excited to get to see her and whatever she is becoming, or he, that I never could have anticipated.
Absolutely. Boy, you sound like an ideal friend for... I'm not going to say I hope all your friends get divorced because that would be terrible. But if they do, you're a great person.
I have been through some intense stuff in my life. And what I find is just that whether it is divorce, loss of a spouse, a new diagnosis, right? So much of this, it has its nuances and its differences. But there is a lot of stuff that is the same.
Yes, that's
which
true.
Is another example is like a friend of mine, her son was in the NICU for 9 months.
Oh.
I went and like lived in their house for a period of time. And when we were talking about, you were talking about like the heartbreak roller coaster phase and then the mending where maybe they can come back to your friendship. Like, I'm so happy I could be there for her and I would never change that, but I'd be lying if I said that going there and doing that is so self-sacrificing as the friend, because nothing is about me really for the 2 weeks I'm there, right? She doesn't ask how I'm doing. She doesn't check in on my day. Like, it is about me cooking her meals, walking her dog, getting her laundry, dealing with her house, asking her how her day was in the NICU. it's quite frankly pretty emotionally exhausting.
Yes.
And when my friend who lost her husband last year, a different friend, when I found out he passed, I messaged her and I was just like, do you want me to get on a plane? And she said yes. And I got on a plane that same day and I was there again for 2 weeks. It's very similar.
It is. Supporting somebody in grief or in trauma or in crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of it has like repetitive patterns. And so that's a very sweet compliment. Thank you. But it just comes from sitting in the hard stuff with so many people at this point that, I can do an episode on divorce. I can do an episode on losing a spouse, on losing a child. I've done episodes on all of these things. That's why I think they're so important, is like once you do it once, you can take what you learned and apply it with some nuance and some changes. Yeah.
Presence is so important. I think we so often, think we have to fix things, and we don't have to fix things. And there's some things that aren't fixable. Your friends getting divorced, that's not something you can fix.
No.
But just going and sitting with that person, sitting in the feelings with them is such a gift.
Yeah. Just being along for the ride. And the other thing I would say, like, as the friend, is that you're also on your own ride.
Yes, that's right.
So like take care of yourself. It's different in every situation. And in divorce, like maybe you were really close to their partner. Maybe you took family vacations together, or you were neighbors and you had barbecues all the time, or you saw them at holidays. Like there is a component of a loss for you too, whether you liked the person or not. Like maybe that person really frustrated you the entirety of their marriage. Things are still different. So also like being kind to yourself and finding places to process that on like the outer circles. Don't dump that on the person going through it. Find somebody else. I want to take a second and I want to talk to the friend who is showing up. Because maybe you are listening to this episode if you're the person going through divorce and you're like, this is how I want people to show up for me. Maybe you have more ideas, which, by the way, if that's the case, send me a message. I would love to hear your ideas of how you wish your friend showed up for you. I will be sure to compile those and include those in future episodes and resources. But I also know we have some friends who are listening, people who really care about their people and want to show up. And if that is you, I am talking to you. Because this whole episode, being the friend who shows up, I want to be totally honest and tell you it is hard. It is emotionally exhausting. It's a lot of self-monitoring. It is showing up again and again for someone who, at least for a little while, cannot really show up back for you. And on top of that, you might also be grieving. Maybe you loved spending time with this couple. Maybe you genuinely really like their spouse. Maybe the dynamic of your entire friend group is shifting and you don't know what the new version is going to look like. And you didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for the divorce and the change. So I'm here to tell you that there probably is a lot going on for you too. So I want to introduce you to something, and I was kind of alluding to it here with Oona, but it's called the ring theory. It was developed by psychologists Susan Silk and Barry Goldman, and I will link to an article about it in the show notes so that you can go deeper, but here's the core idea. Imagine that the person in crisis, the person getting a divorce, is at the center of a circle. And then imagine rings around that person, each ring representing the people in their life, with the closest people in the inner rings, and the outer rings being more distant connections. The rule is simple. Comfort goes in and dumping goes out. So if you are on one of those inner rings, but you are not the person in crisis in the very center, and you are supporting your friend through divorce, you do not process your own feelings with the person in the center circle going through the crisis. You take those feelings to someone in a ring further out than you. A mutual friend, a therapist, her sister, someone who is not the person at the center. I have been this person that is like one ring out at least a dozen times in my life now. And I will tell you this, it is emotionally exhausting, right? I almost have to emotionally prepare when I know that I am going to show up for a friend in this way. I also absolutely build in a self-care routine buffer after I leave them. Like if I'm going to stay with them for a week, or even if I'm just going over there for dinner and I know it's going to be intense, I'm probably going to give myself a buffer the next day, because it does take something out of you, and that is okay. That is normal. That is what it means to really show up for someone. And I hope that in doing this, right, someday if I needed someone to show up for me, they would do the same for me. That is the goal. But here's what I also want to tell you. It is a lot of work, but there's nothing like it. Getting in there with someone during the hardest time in their life, it really does change a friendship in a way that nothing else can. That closeness, that bond, it is real, but it's going to feel hard in the moment. I'm actually working on some resources specifically for the friend who is showing up in the crisis or the major transition, because like I mentioned, there are similarities, whether it is divorce, loss, or something else. There's a lot of patterns, a lot of things you can learn, and a lot of ways to show up at different times in your friend's journey. So be on the lookout for some resources to help you out in that.
Did you want to talk about moving on phase too?
I, of course, want to talk about moving on, because we got to complete the 5 phases.
Yes.
In my mind, this is like the most fun phase.
Yes, definitely.
This is that like excitement of like you might get to meet a whole new version of your friend that you never could have anticipated.
Absolutely. So the moving on phase is really when your friend is able to take all that energy that she spent on the difficult marriage, on the difficult divorce, and reinvest it in something that's new. And it's not that she forgets that she's divorced, that's always going to be part of her history, but she's going to invest it in something new. And that's a great time to be a friend. And maybe you want to invest in something new too, or maybe you just want to hear about it and cheer her on.
Yeah. What would you say about kind of like celebrating in this phase? Like to me, this feels like a great phase. I'm not saying like necessarily throw a party or tell this person, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody has gone through so much work at this point. As their friend, I feel like I'd really want to be like, wow, I'm so proud of you for just getting up every day and continuing.
Yes. I think that's a great thing to do, is to tell your friend that you're proud of them and to ask them if they want a party. And, if they do, that's great. And it doesn't even have to be like oh, my ex is gone party. It could be like, I'm having a new chapter party, right? You could help sign them up for the Fresh Starts registry. There's a divorce registry now, just like you would help your friend with a wedding registry or a baby registry. How about a divorce registry? Well, that's available at Fresh Starts, So yeah, I think really being proud of them and celebrating their successes and wins is really important in this stage.
Well, when you're talking about the Fresh Starts Registry, I was like, wow, I mean, what a beautiful role you could have as a friend. We were talking about stigma to kind of like circle up this episode. Your role at this point especially could be talking to other people out there about the stigma of divorce and trying to rewrite that narrative. Like that's helpful to your friend.
Absolutely.
Like, it might be hard for them to be vocal about it, but maybe it's easier for you because you haven't experienced it. Oona, thank you so much for coming on and just talking about divorce and how people can better support each other through this big life change.
Oh, this was such a great conversation. It was really a pleasure to be here. And sounds like you're not only talking the talk, but you're walking the walk of being a really good friend. So we need more people out there like you.
Oh, thanks, Oona. Ooh, the conversation was a rich one. There are so many examples and ideas and new frameworks in this one episode. It's a lot to process all at one time. If we go back to the very beginning of the episode, what Oona said about not assuming, about not walking up to a friend and saying, I'm so sorry, before you even know how they're feeling. I think that is still what stands out to me as one of the most impactful things you can take away from this episode. Because when we automatically default to condolences or celebration, when we actually haven't asked our friends how they are doing and how they feel, it really does set the tone for everything that is to come. And as we learned in today's episode, there are 5 stages of divorce grief. So if we start off on the wrong foot, it can be really hard to show up for your friend later in the stages. The other thing I hope everybody takes away is that divorce is grief. It moves in phases. It's not linear. And the friend who understands that, the one who can hold the nuance, who doesn't say, but wait, I thought you were doing better. The one who just shows up and thought they were going to have a fun, carefree night and realizes we're really going to get into the nitty-gritty and we have a lot of feelings today. The one who shows up to re-own Rhode Island in the letting go phase. That is the kind of friend who changes everything for someone going through a divorce. If you want to be that friend, or if you're going through this yourself, please go check out the show notes of this episode. I have linked Oona's book, Unhitched, The Essential Divorce Guide for Women. And I have also linked the ring theory article that I mentioned in narration 2, because I really do think it is one of the most important concepts you can understand if you're going to show up for people going through crisis. Both are worth your time. And if this episode hits close to home, whether you're in the middle of a divorce or you're watching someone you love go through one, know that you are not alone in trying to figure out how to do this. That's why you have all these people around you. With that, I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Friendship IRL. I am so honored to have these conversations with you, but don't let the chat die here. Send me a voice message. I created a special website just to chat with you. You can find it at alex.chat. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle @itsAlexAlexander. Or go ahead and leave a review wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. Now, if you want to take this conversation a step further, send this episode to a friend. Tell them you found it interesting and use what we just talked about as a conversation starter the next time you and your friend hang out. No need for a teary goodbye. I'll be back with a new episode next week.